Via Negativa meditation. The silent path to your deepest self in sacred darkness. Chapter 1. What is not? Introducing Via Negativa. From Christian mystics to modern psychology. The Via Negativa is not a philosophical novelty but a perennial strand in humanity's struggle to articulate the ineffable. Its lineage is a river flowing through diverse landscapes of thought, from the cloistered cells of medieval mystics to the clinical couches of modern therapists. To trace this history is to witness a consistent, radical insight that the path to ultimate reality, whether divine or psychological, proceeds not through accumulation, but through a courageous and systematic letting go. The most profound roots of the Western Via Negativa are found in the synthesis of Greek philosophy and Judeo-Christian revelation. The seminal figure is Pseudo-Dionysius the Areopagite 5th-6th century CE, who gave the tradition its name and structure. In the mystical theology, he framed the approach with stunning clarity. We ascend to the ray of the divine darkness not by affirmations but by negations. It is not soul, not intellect, not order, not greatness, not one, not unity, not divinity. This, God beyond God, could only be approached by stripping away every finite concept, culminating in a state of unknowing. Dionysius established the apophatic negative discourse as the highest form of theology, superior to the cataphatic positive discourse that works with images and analogies. His work, mistakenly attributed to a disciple of St. Paul, carried immense authority and shaped centuries of mystical thought. It was in the Rhineland of the 14th century, however, that the Via Negativa found its most radical and psychologically astute exponent in the Christian tradition, Meister Eckhart. A Dominican theologian and preacher, Eckhart took the apophatic method and applied it not just to God, but to the soul's journey toward union. His sermons, delivered in the vernacular German, electrified and scandalized his audiences. For Eckhart, God is God, the personal, triune God of religious practice, was still a concept. The true goal was the Godhead, God-hate, the silent, barren ground beyond all names and forms, the simple ground, the still desert, where no one is at home. It was in the Rhineland of the 14th century, however, that the Via Negativa found its most radical and psychologically astute exponent in the Christian tradition, Meister Eckhart. A Dominican theologian and preacher, Eckhart took the apophatic method and applied it not just to God, but to the soul's journey toward union. His sermons, delivered in the vernacular German, electrified and scandalized his audiences. For Eckhart, God is God. The personal, triune God of religious practice was still a concept. The true goal was the Godhead, God-hate, the silent, barren ground beyond all names and forms, the simple ground, the still desert, where no one is at home. To reach this ground, Eckhart prescribed a radical internal subtraction he called Abgeschiedenheit, often translated as detachment or disinterest. This was not mere asceticism of possessions, but an absolute release of all creaturely attachments, including the attachment to one's own will, one's own knowledge, and even the comforting image of a God who rewards and consoles. The soul must become a pure nothing. In a stunning sermon, he prayed, "I beg God to rid me of God." This was the ultimate negation, to let go of the conceptual God, to make room for the actual Godhead. The soul's spark, the Funklein, could then unite with this divine ground in a birth that was simultaneously the birth of the sun in the soul, and the soul's vanishing into the desert of the Godhead. Eckhart's psychology of detachment, the emptying of the egoic self to make space for the uncreated self, is a cornerstone of the practical Via Negativa. Following Eckhart, figures like Jan van Ruysbroek and the anonymous author of The Cloud of Unknowing further refined the path. The Cloud offered a practical manual, advising the seeker to place all creatures and thoughts under a cloud of forgetting, and to pierce toward God with a naked intent, and a sharp dart of longing love. Here, negation was not cold philosophy, but a passionate, loving unknowing. This stream of apophatic mysticism, though often viewed with suspicion by institutional religion, formed an underground current of immense power. The Enlightenment and the rise of scientific materialism seemed to sever this mystical thread, but the core logic of negation resurfaced in secular guise. Philosophers like Immanuel Kant performed a critical negation by delineating the limits of pure reason. He negated philosophy's ability to make positive statements about the noumenal realm, the ding and sick. This was a philosophical via negativa, acknowledging that the ultimate nature of reality is inaccessible to the categories of the understanding. Later, existentialists would confront the void left by the death of God, a negation of cosmic meaning that required the individual to strip away societal illusions to confront an authentic, if absurd, existence. It is in modern psychology, however, that the via negativa finds its most unexpected and practical renaissance. The connection is not genealogical but analogical. The human problem of suffering, it turns out, also responds to a cure of subtraction. Sigmund Freud's psychoanalysis, though an additive theory of drives and complexes, contained a negating core. The talking cure aimed to make the unconscious conscious, to subtract the power of repressed material by bringing it to light, but it was later therapeutic models that more explicitly embraced a via negativa. The humanistic psychology of Carl Rogers emphasized unconditional positive regard, a therapeutic stance that involves the clinician subtracting their own judgments and conditions to create a space where the client's authentic self can emerge. This is a relational form of detachment, a negation of the therapist's ego to facilitate the client's self-actualization. More directly, third-wave cognitive behavioral therapies, CBT like acceptance, and commitment therapy, SET, and mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, MBCT, are essentially applied disciplines of negation. They teach clients to subtract their identification with painful thoughts and feelings. The core process is diffusion, learning to see thoughts as just thoughts, not truths, thereby negating their controlling power. Mindfulness practice is the training of attention to let go, subtract, of engagement with the endless stream of mental content, and to rest in present moment awareness. The goal is not to add a new positive self-concept, but to create space from the old, negative one. The psychological suffering caused by attachment, in the Buddhist, not the Freudian sense, is alleviated by the disciplined practice of non-attachment, or negation. Furthermore, the influential work of psychiatrist Iain McGilchrist, in The Master and His Emissary, frames the modern world's malaise as the tyranny of the left hemisphere's reductive, utilitarian, and additive mode of cognition. The healing, he suggests, requires a re-engagement with the right hemisphere's capacity for holistic, empathetic, and contextual understanding, a mode that is often receptive and subtractive in its quieting of the left hemisphere's categorizing chatter. Thus, the river of negation that flowed from the deserts of the early monks, crested in the sermons of Meister Eckhart, and was channeled through mystical texts, finds its delta in the modern world's quest for mental peace. The theology that sought God by negating concepts has its mirror in the psychology that seeks sanity by negating maladaptive cognitions. Both traditions, separated by context and language, converge on the same insight, that our greatest freedom and our deepest truth are obscured by what we cling to. They are revealed only in the cleared space that remains when we dare, as Eckhart begged, to be rid of our gods. The gods of dogma, of ego, and of our own imprisoning thoughts. The history of the Via Negativa is the history of this liberating, terrifying, and essential subtraction.